This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by HomelandStupidity.us. They're the folks that watchdog the federal government from Manchester, New Hampshire. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about results from a couple trials. This is what I guess you could call a Ridley Report, remote report, where I'm just sort of phoning you right after getting out of a couple trials. It's going to take a while for me to get video on the air, so I want to just inform you of some results. There were two trials today of interest to people who are, watching the government. And there is the first trial was this morning. Bill Walker of Grafton was on trial for a victimless crime of open carrying in a vehicle. Well, if you open carry a firearm in a vehicle, you have it in a holster in your vehicle where it can be seen. It's still considered concealed carry, and he doesn't have a concealed carry license, so he was not on trial, but it was arraigned today, and the police tried to revoke his right to bear arms right there on the spot, just over this one misdemeanor charge with no victim whatsoever. But they were struck down by the judge to some extent. The judge sort of refused to take away Bill's gun rights, and he did the same thing pretty much with Bill's wife, Ivy Walker, and they basically wouldn't give the prosecution everything they want. So both of them were able to maintain their gun rights, their gun freedom that we enjoy in New Hampshire. So the judge was not as bad as he could have been. The other thing that happened today was a completely separate trial. There's no connection I know of between these two men, but there was a man in Concord who was on trial for aiding and abetting allegedly the Browns, Ed and Elaine Brown, who were tax protesters. They holed up in their house for 8 months, kind of held the feds at bay, threatening to shoot anyone that came and tried to arrest them. Well, this triggered, of course, almost a nationwide migration to their house over a period of time. And one of the people who was there was Danny Riley. He was accused of doing some sort of attempt at making an explosive device. And the judge and the court just threw every charge at him imaginable until they had, gotten themselves in a position where there was a mandatory minimum of 30 years or something like that. He ended up getting sentenced today to 432 months in prison. So, of course, it was a victimless crime. Now, I don't condone everything that Riley is alleged to have done, but I'm very concerned about the proportion, the lack of proportion in the sentence was severe. For a victimless crime to get that, that's somewhere between 30 and 40 years, just doesn't seem right. And then there's a hypocrisy issue, because how many bombs does the federal government prosecute itself for making? And how responsible is it, in the creation of explosive devices? There's also questions about whether Riley even created an explosive device, but the judge just acted as though he was there and saw the whole thing as alleged to have happened. It was disturbing to me to hear the judge say things like, you did this, you did that, and so I sentenced you to such and such. He didn't say the evidence is overwhelming, that you did this and that, and the jury found you did this and that. He just said, you did this, you did that, as though he had been there the whole time. And, of course, there were a lot of other things to complain about, and, as always, there were a couple things that were appropriate, perhaps, that were done by the feds, and I'll bring those up, as I always do. Anyway, this is Dave Ridley signing off for RidleyReport.com. This October 28th from Concord, New Hampshire. This edition of the Ridley Report, of course, brought to you by HomelandStupidity.us. And that's Michael Hampton's operation. Drop by if you want to find out the latest bizarre happenings inside the federal government. Michael Hampton watches these people. Maybe I should say he's the watchdog that the media ought to be. Michael Hampton from HomelandStupidity.us, the watchdog that the media ought to be. Dave Ridley signing out for RidleyReport.com.